So 2 years ago, Spider-Man Far From Home broke me.
Sick? Heartbroken.
Now I'm about to go see No Way Home, but I have to make a stop first. Josh, are you excited for No Way Home?
Kinda.
John, are you excited for No Way Home?
Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go.
Hey, how you doing? As much as I'd like to think my passion, my style, my personality is what led me to have the platform that I'm so lucky to be standing on, I'd be lying if I didn't admit that my career on here, my success, my infamy, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is forever intertwined in the tangled web John Watts and Kevin Feige have woven for the wall crawler. After Far From Home, after the constant, consistent lack of hefty emotional weight, the avoidance of empathy and sincerity, the focus on being a lighthearted teen comedy with the maturity and depth of an episode of Drake and Josh, I was heartbroken, unable to be excited for anything Marvel was going to do with this rendition of a character that I have loved since I first could love. To put it simply, Peter Parker in the MCU outside of Civil War has never felt like Peter Parker to me. I know that, you know that, we all know it. I should just shut the f up. And did I think for a second that Spider-Man No Way Home would change that, would fix that? Was I hopeful? A little. Was I assured? Nah. Was I wrong? Kinda. But first, I'd like to thank the special sponsor of this video, Ren. I don't know if you've, looked outside or read the climate report that recently came out, but the phrase Code Red for Humanity threw me into an existential crisis. The threat of climate change has been around longer than I have, but it's something we don't see happening in real time, so it's too often too easy to ignore. But Ren has an answer for that. Ren is a website where you can calculate your carbon footprint, then offset it by funding projects that plant trees, protect rainforest, and start doing something about the climate crisis. It's easy, necessary, and about damn time for us to take some damn responsibility and accountability for the planet we call home. Just by answering a few questions about your lifestyle, you can find out your carbon footprint and figure out how you can reduce it. No human being can fully reduce their carbon footprint to zero, but you can offset what you have left after reducing. Once you sign up to make a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint, you receive monthly updates from the tree planting, rainforest protection, and other projects you support. You get to see the trees you planted and what your money is being spent on. It will take a lot to end the climate crisis, but we don't want to be left with no home to find our way back to, and you can start helping today by learning more at ren.co. I've partnered with Ren to plant 10 extra trees for the first 100 people who sign up using my referral link in the description. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna be real with you goons. The first hour, the first half of Spider-Man No Way Home threw me into the darkest parts of hell with no way out. It's typical MCU Spider-Man, the style, the memes, the jokes, stuff that is simply in no way for me. Except now, we get to see villains from Spider-Man franchises that I love. And seeing these actors reprise their roles is goosebump inducing. When Ock shows up, when you hear that Elfman theme slowly creep in, when the echo of the Goblin laugh hits those eardrums, when the audience gasps, collectively getting a cold shiver sent down their spine. It's like nothing else. Until you, if you're unfortunately like me, quickly realize that John Watts and screenwriters Eric Somers and Chris McKenna working with Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn and Melina's Otto Octavius within the MCU's established tone is like trying to eat a gourmet meal in the stall of the KFC bathroom. It still tastes great, it still hits the spot, don't get me wrong, you still get those goosebumps, but you're distracted by the smell of bleach that covers up the human excrement of processed chicken. It's almost like taking these legends and shoving them into Happy Hogan's apartment was never going to be the best way to serve and service these characters. What I'm saying is taking characters crafted, conceived almost 20 years ago by a director at the height of his career, a director whose style, personality, heart, and soul is felt in every frame, every blink, every touch, and throwing them into the Marvel machine, throwing them into the third MCU Spider-Man tale, filmed during a pandemic, should never work. And for me, half the time, it did not work. For me, the first half of No Way Home was everything I feared. Raimi meme callbacks, Stark Tech controlling Ock's arms, a lizard and an Electro who act very differently from what we once saw. But you know, at least it's self-aware about it this swing around. Peter Parker, rather than deal with his own problems, immediately thinks to run to an Avenger for help, but this time he suffers the consequences that have been sorely missing. Peter Parker, rather than confront the MIT Assistant Vice Chancellor, indirectly puts the entire fate of reality at risk. Peter Parker, rather than have his mission based in empathy, would rather get rid of these villains, these victims, as soon as possible so he can focus on what's really important, getting his girlfriend and best friend into college. It's as if the storytellers realized the absurdity of Peter Parker accidentally ordering a drone strike on a classmate, the redundancy of him constantly trying to stand on his own, but then regressing back into a mini Avenger, and decided to call the character out on that kind of behavior. It's as if the filmmakers realized that they needed a do-over with MCU Spider-Man, a softcore back-to-basics reboot. It's as if they realized that Spider-Man No Way Home could actually be the way to get Spider-Man back home. And I'm here for it, man. Genuinely, I really am. I only wish the film didn't look like it was shot over a Zoom call or in Kevin Feige's basement. I get this was made during the time of a pandemic, but I found No Way Home to be, 80% of the time, hideously ugly with no tangible sense of space or reality. A lot of singles, characters, fantastic actors isolated in front of a green screen, interacting with nothing, edited together with another fantastic actor, probably shot weeks, months later, reacting, isolated in front of a separate green screen. This has been the Marvel method for a good bit, but it's never felt so noticeable to me. The spatial continuity, the visual rhythm has never felt so off to me. No Way Home clearly needed a few more months in the oven, because the half-baked CGI really left a stale taste in my mouth. It's not by any means the fault of the artists, who probably finished working on it last week after months of sleepless, caffeinated nights. But if you have to use recycled footage from Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 1 just to provide satisfying emotional closure to two of your lead villains, it might be time to delay the movie. What I'm trying to say, really, is that I wish I could hear more of Jon Watts' voice as a filmmaker, as an artist. His visual touches in this film, the oneers, the trackers, the rawer violence are more predominant, but he still feels caught up, too caged, confined to the MCU film's hamster wheel of bare bones, flatly lit medium shots. A Spider-Man film has never felt so visually textureless to me, so aesthetically lifeless, with no sense of tangibility. To me, the visual styling gets in the way of the story and storytelling too many times. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire show up. They make their grand return. Two beloved Spider-Men, icons. You will never get to experience that feeling again. Neither will I. And that experience is great. The collective love like no other. But that experience will always have been filmed in boring medium shots, edited for applause, and written, staged in Ned's grandma's house. There's no going back, and I just wish that that resurrection, that once-in-a-lifetime moment, was a tad more awe-inspiring. Spider-Man swinging has never felt so lifeless. Spider-Men soaring together will always get a massive applause, even if it looks like murky, unfinished previs with less style, clarity, and punch than what Mark Webb did in 2012 and what Sam Raimi did in 2002. I know it sounds like I hate this film, trust me guys, I know, but I promise you that Spider-Man No Way Home is my favorite of the Watts trilogy. It's my favorite thing the MCU has done with the character since 2016, and it's the first time that Tom Holland's Peter Parker has really felt like Spider-Man to me. There's a moment, that big moment, when the tone took that massive switch, when the MCUism started taking a backseat, being restrained to Doctor Strange's prison, when they finally allowed genuine emotion, genuine sincerity, when No Way Home transitioned from being a standard, messy, modern MCU flick to finally a Spider-Man movie. And that transition happened as soon as they allowed Peter Parker to feel, allowed us to witness, to empathize with loss, with grief, with longing, with pain. It's a brilliant move to kill Aunt May, to make her the much needed Ben Parker. And I'm fine with that. I'm more than fine with MCU Peter being pretty much raised by a single mother. That's a lovely, smart addition that could actually add more to this version of the character. But I so very wish that I cared about this May Parker. No Way Home tries and almost succeeds at making her what she always should have been, Peter's moral compass. The only problem there is that for the last 2 movies, for the last 5 years, this Aunt May has been relegated to the cool, chill, hot mom.
Summer fling.
It's a travesty, a tragedy, because Tom Holland really brings it here. John Watts really brings it in the way he allows her, allows Peter, allows us to feel the weight of her shocking death. I just wish this was planned, wish this was thought out movies ago, because then, maybe, May Parker would have always held the emotional weight, always have been the quintessential, strong, selfless mother that her comic counterpart, that her other film renditions have always been. But is that this film's fault for trying to rectify the previous? I'm not sure. I really don't know. I do know that after that moment, I started to feel a lot. I started to become invested in this Peter's journey. Maybe it was the inclusion of the other Spider-Men, the surprise everyone saw coming, but the love I was not expecting. Andrew saving MJ, Toby leaping in front of Norman's glider, all wonderful cathartic character moments for 2 Spider-Men that have been trying to stop those inevitable, fateful tragedies from ever occurring. They couldn't in their universes. They couldn't and will never be able to go back and stop the loss they have experienced. But maybe, just maybe, to quote Andrew Garfield's always gut-punching, vulnerable Peter Parker, they can stop Tom's Peter from ending up like them. But that's the thing, right? That's what the movie is saying, right? That in order to be Spider-Man, truly be Spider-Man, you must experience life-altering, unforgettable, earth-shattering heartbreak. You must suffer only to endure. You must be faced with a choice to harm only to help. It's what they do, what Spider-Man always will do. And yeah, man, there are little things I could nitpick all the live long day. The idea that Max Dillon or Kurt Connors have something they want to be cured of, they need fucking therapy, not a non-consensual jab to the neck. Or Raimi's Peter referring to Harry's death as if it happened after a betrayal when it was really a loving sacrifice that killed his best friend.
My friend Harry taught me that. He chose to be the best of himself.
Or Pete's and MJ's entire relationship, Tom and Zendaya. They have great chemistry, but their love wasn't naturally established, naturally built. It wasn't about teenage idealization and then adulthood sacrifice. And their connection, their friendship, partnership was never as palpable as Peter and Gwen's. Or I could just complain about fucking Ned. But there's also tons of things I could freak out about all the live long day that I did freak out about through watery eyes of nostalgic joy. Raimi's Peter and Otto's reunion, Andrew's Peter silently watching Holland's Peter and MJ be in love. Pretty much the entire third act is an emotional roller coaster full of fan service that even the coldest of hearts will feel some warmth by witnessing. Obviously, I'm mixed on the movie, but for the first time, I can say that I'm optimistic about where the story, with a new set of storytellers, can go from here. Even if I can't quite figure out what No Way Home is trying to say, not on a thematic level, but on this weird meta level. Are they saying, acknowledging that Tom was never really Spider-Man? Never really felt any kind of great loss, consequence, or great sense of responsibility? Am I supposed to applaud the fact it took this long to see the fundamentals of the icon back on the big screen? Are they really saying that we've spent more than half a decade and 6 film appearances watching a character that needed to lose everything, needed everyone to forget him in order for him to become the Peter Parker we all know and love? Don't get me wrong, like I said, I'm here for it. I'm overjoyed to an almost disturbing degree that No Way Home ends in a crumbly, crusty apartment where the camera lingers longer, where bathos is removed, where we are left with nothing but melancholy sincerity, left with a Peter Parker who has nobody to call, nobody to pass his problems off to, nobody to share his grief with, swinging into the winter night, a Spider-Man reborn. They for sure fixed MCU Spider-Man, but the implications of that leave me kind of bewildered. The acknowledgement that his character thus far was broken, and thus broke me. The detachment from the MCU, the need to no longer be reliant on the Avengers brand. The idea that now Spider-Man can swing again without the need to have a Fury, a Happy, a Tony, a Strange there by his side leaves us right back to where we started. A kid, a broke kid, a loner trying to get by on his own with a secret he must hide in order to protect those he cares for. A young man who feels a massive sense of responsibility because bad things will always happen and they will happen because of you. Will he regress again? Will the character always be destined to repeat this, to relearn, to need to be reborn? Or was having two veterans, two older brothers who have been through it all, finally enough to show this Peter Parker, to show us that grief, that loss is an inescapable part of life, and that true great power comes from the willingness to carry on, to empathize, to share the selflessness and the love we are shown, even if that love is too often, too easily ripped away from us.